Hey everyone. We're going to be kicking off, I guess, with a small bit of news to roll out with. I know that everybody's been waiting on some kind of tangible information coming forward. A lot of it being, where's the white paper? Like, I'm fully aware that everybody wants the white paper to be here already. So I'm going to open with speaking about that. The white paper at this point has been fully agreed on, roadmapped, and is nearing a point of content completion. The vast majority of work right now is actually just in the design phase to get it all put together in a nice, pretty package, and we're going to start delivering it out. So I'm going to speak a little bit about the actual content that's in it, but similarly, I am going to wait until the actual white paper is released for the vast majority of what's in there to be known. So I've spoken a few times now on the last couple of AMAs that we did. I think we've spoken about this a couple of times now, in that when it comes to, I suppose, the long-term roadmap for Dogira, a lot of it was around the SDK for specific gaming engines, things like that. And I've spoken a couple of times now on how we would really want to start moving towards perhaps providing experiences and titles, building an SDK around what we actually find there to be use in, rather than trying to assume generic market cases, spend a considerable amount of time on actually building an SDK and getting that rolled out then and trying to onboard individual developers to generate any value or profit from it for actual holders that are waiting with the token right now. I think one of the largest things that hit me on that was, I think nearly everybody might be aware at this point of the token not needed memes that are going around. Other coins that have been built to provide functionality, utility, and use cases, in that you can still access everything that you want to access without actually owning the token. Realistically, if we were to push forward with an SDK being our only plan of attack for, developing utility around Dogira, the issue would be, how would we actually get people on board with that and spending Dogira tokens to access the SDK when you consider that a lot of the major engines that are running right now, they would actually have their own asset store, and unfortunately right now they simply deal with cash. So we could put it on their asset store, and then we could try and onboard a developer and tell them you need to buy Dogira, and then you need to put it into this wallet and pay for use on it. The reality is that given what we're actually developing and the amount of other solutions that are out there, which, to be quite blunt, are being worked on by much larger teams than what we have access to at the moment, we would be going in blind and praying that we're able to, I suppose, derive value from an SDK, which may in its own right be excellent, but would not have as big a market as we might hope for it to have, particularly when there are other options available, ones that currently right now do not require any tokens to use, or require minimal tokens to use. So that's why on my end, a lot of what we're writing into the white paper at the moment and what we've agreed on internally is actually focusing towards building our own titles and experiences that would make direct or indirect use of the actual Dogira tokens, or have other ways that would be able to, I suppose, reflect value back to the actual holders, rather than, again, hoping that we release an SDK which would have a considerable development time. I mean, a developer who's left the project now, I remember them speaking about their timeframes on it, which may have been communicated to some members, but never from any official level, simply because in knowing myself how much work was required in developing a full SDK for a game engine, that the timeframes given were not something that I could agree on. And following looking over it myself after this team member departing the team, it simply just read to me as something that would not be good for, I suppose, developers on our side, and also would not be good for any holders of the token. I simply couldn't see value being generated well enough there to actually improve the price of the token as it stands right now, or even improve as it stands in a couple of months' time. I wouldn't see any immediate benefit from it, but I do see a benefit in us developing on our own titles, experiences, games, etc., and building an SDK around that as we go on and finding what's actually useful, what are we getting value from here, what's removing some of the workload, and what's adding in, I suppose, a level of immersiveness where it's actually worth having this in the game. I mean, it's very simple to just throw something on and saying, it's on the blockchain now, great, but what has it actually solved? And that's kind of the main issue for me, that I don't want to build an SDK which I'm going to be solving problems, I suppose, in my head rather than actually facing them when I'm developing, and then hoping that other developers would just simply see the same value that I'm seeing. Whereas in a lot of cases, it's very easy to kind of confuse what would work better on a more central dedicated server, particularly in where we are right now with general blockchain advancements and where we need it to be before it become a real-time system. So in developing on our own games and titles and developing our own SDK internally that can, I suppose, save us time on what we're actually building and we can verify as having good use cases, that is what I would see be having the most major value for Dogira, both for, I suppose, investors, consumers, and developers in the long term when they begin actually working on that. To top off on that one, I do want to note at this point that we have been looking for Solidity developers, and we have now also extended that reach out to looking for game developers to join our team as well. And we have begun interviewing with these. So I'm hoping in the near future we'll have more news on that. But when reading through the white paper, please do keep in mind that we'll be speaking about developing actual games, experiences, and titles when it comes to, I suppose, the future of Dogira. Without giving, again, massive amount of detail on it, which will be contained within the white paper, I think everybody will be excited to see some of the fantastic collaborators and partners that have come on board with us for this, and then how we're actually going to be delivering this and also creating value for the Dogira token itself, rather than building an SDK which would be tangibly tied to the Dogira SDK or the Dogira token even. So there will likely be, I understand, a lot of questions on that. This is run through in the white paper, and again, I'm really excited for everybody to actually get to read through it and see how we've managed to tie these things together and the stuff that we're going to be making. I'm also excited to begin, I suppose, showing the community some of the developers that have been approaching us speaking about coming on board with Dogira, developing titles under us. There is a lot of really cool stuff on the way, and I know everybody wants way more news and they want it way faster, especially considering the general market blues that we're in at the moment. I mean, if you think 3 or 4 days ago when we were down testing 30k, 29k, everybody was getting super bearish on crypto in general. And then all of a sudden we had a little bit of a breakthrough to the upside. And those are the hardest times to actually hold on to your tokens. Now, I know for a lot of people in here, Dogira may be, it might be a sizable portion of what you're actually holding in total. For some people, it could even be, over 90%. And I know how frightening it can be when there's a general down day in the market and you just want news. We are working on getting it to you as quickly as possible. The second bit of news then to kind of follow on from this one. So when working on the white paper and road mapping out what we're going to be doing, and looking over the last couple of months myself, one of the most major areas of concern for me, and I think some have mentioned it already as well, was the fact that I'm currently working full-time with a multinational company. So obviously my time has been limited when I could actually jump into Dogira and be able to, actually work on things for the token. On top of that as well, as with anybody working a full-time job in, a large company, there are plenty of nights where I'm just tired and I need to focus on getting some sleep. Or, in a better case scenario, maybe focus on getting some exercise or seeing people. Unfortunately, a bit more difficult given the global lockdowns coming back in, but the reality was it would be extremely difficult to do this without me being able to dedicate, I suppose, more time and commit much better to the project. So I can announce at this stage that I've handed in my notice at my full-time job, and in 3 weeks' time, I will be available full-time. At that point, I'm hoping that we're going to start seeing things really kick off on Dogira, especially with the white paper due for delivery before that date. We're hoping that the white paper comes out in the next 2 weeks. And with that, then we're hoping that you'll all be able to see exactly what we're going to be working on in the near, medium, and long-term futures. So those are the major news updates, and I hope that you're hearing some relief from it in knowing that you do have a team here that's with you and ready to actually begin working on this stuff. And obviously we had Skyler and we have Dan, who have both been putting their own hours into it as well. Skyler being full-time on the Dogira team at the moment. So we're able to add another body to that, and we're also looking to hire on for additional positions in game development and also in Solidity development in the future. So there are good things to look forward to, and I do hope again that there is relief taken from that, particularly in knowing that we've been in, I'm not going to say a bear market, because I think Bitcoin being over $20,000 is indicative of us not being in a bear market, but we are in a bit of a bearish cycle at the moment. which is pretty normal for summertime in crypto. It's not really put any fear on me, but this is the fourth cycle I've been around for. You eventually get a little bit calmer with it. I know for others that might have bought in at, 50k, 60k Bitcoin, it can be a little bit more difficult to look at. So I do hope that this does give you some relief in knowing that if you've bought in for utility on the project and you've bought in for actual development and to see what kind of innovations that we can kind of push forward with, particularly in given that NFT based and our native blockchain gaming projects have done extremely well over the actual bearish cycle. I think that we've really put everything on the right pathway to really do something fantastic with Dogira. And again, I'm really looking forward to sharing the white paper with you all, where we'll be able to run through absolutely everything and answer all questions in much greater detail. So with that out of the way, now that myself, Skyler, and Dan are on the main stage, we'll start jumping through your questions.
Let's see. If either the sex listing or marketing firm agreements are canceled, delayed, indefinitely, or otherwise fall through, can the community expect an announcement about it immediately? And would it be possible to have a firm commitment to that effect with a specific time frame?
I'm not sure what you're looking for with a firm commitment to that effect with a specific time frame. Like if I could turn around and ask any tier 1 CEX, okay, exactly what date am I coming on board with you? Then it'd be a very simple world for us to live in. If there was some sort of cancellation, or we were due to go live, let's say we're due to go live tomorrow, and I'm just saying out loud we're not. But if we were due to go live tomorrow and we're told today, yeah, we can't do it, obviously we would communicate that back to the community immediately. Right now, what we're looking at in terms of moving on board with other partners for general swaps and things like that, I need to kind of make clear that a lot of people are expecting a CEX to be some sort of instant moon, that you'll instantly have this gigantic liquidity pool to dive into. You'll instantly get a 10x on the price, things like that. I mean, it doesn't work that way. I mean, if you take a look even on Binance or on KuCoin or on Gate or anywhere like that, have a look at the tokens by market cap, and there's probably a lot that are below where we currently are right now. And there's also a lot that are far below what we would have been at during our parabolic leap. And there's a couple of tokens that I have on KuCoin, and a lot of them are far under where Dogira's value is at the moment. So that's one thing that I want to kind of be clear on, that we're not looking for a tier 1 CEX just to say that we will magically gain value when we go on there. We will not. We might actually lose value. There's going to be a liquidity pool that will be able to give better deals on the current price, saying you won't dump it if you're trying to cash out or anything like that. So when we're looking to get onto a CEX or another DEX or anything like that, we look at what actually grows value for the token. There's a lot of kind of what we hear from the CEX is just, I want instant price go up, and it simply doesn't work that way. We would do the community a massive disservice if we were simply putting all of our time, effort, and attention into stating we need to be on this particular CEX just to get the price to go up. Like for me, it's what can that, CEX or DEX, etc. do for us? What can it actually bring in value to the project? And, what can we actually get for the amount of money that this type of thing costs? I mean, when we look at all of these CEXs and they have, extremely high listing rates, you're talking 200,000 or above in US dollars. And for a lot of it is to get a glorified advertisement, which doesn't immediately bring people to you. I mean, people aren't going to see just the name Doji. Well, no, sorry, I should actually rephrase that or refrain from making such a blanket statement over it. I'm sure plenty of people would look at a new token and just buy it and hope. But that's not what works out in the real world. If you look at when we went live on Hotbit and they ran out of liquidity, people went and bought in at, I think, $1.50, something like that. And we were trading on Uniswap for, I think, about 20 cents at the time, or if even there. We could have been a bit lower, or in around that mark anyway. So this is kind of the fear I have when answering, if they're cancelled or delayed indefinitely or otherwise fall through, will there be an announcement? Like, yes, we would make an announcement if, for whatever reason, we planned on never applying to another CEX or DEX again and cutting all conversation. If we did make an announcement like that, it would bear much worse news than simply being, oh, we're not on this particular one. Like, we're always speaking with CEX and DEX partners and seeing which would actually bring the most value onto the project, which can we actually grow with. None of us are approaching these CEXs or otherwise to say what will give this instant moon onto the price. Like we look for partners that we work with. We don't look to just, get listed somewhere for a little bit of visibility. The reality is we have, I think we had 3,000 holders have come on board at this stage. And we've had threads on the front page of Reddit. We've appeared in a lot of places that have given us like a lot of that blanket publicity that a CEX listing would have gotten us. So when we look at these things, we're not rushing into a deal with the first, crowd that says yes, simply to get a little bit of publicity from it. We would be doing a massive injustice by putting our liquidity and a large listing fee into something that is not going to make any tangible long-term difference for the project outside of maybe a day one boost in price. And yes, it's good to get those boosts in pricing, but again, we need to look at this from a more long-term perspective in what will actually assist with the project. But we are still speaking with CEXs and DEXs and making decisions based around those particular things. Like I said, getting the project into more people's hands is brilliant, but we're not doing it at the we're not doing it at the actual extent of saying yes, we need to just jump onto any given CEX no matter what. I mean, there are a lot of ways to buy Dogira right now. I don't think it's very walled off, and I think there are far healthier things we can do than just throw ourselves at the first CEX that says yes and not even negotiating what we can do around growing the token, growing the project, seeing if there's development resources that can assist with us. There's so much more to going with a CEX or DEX than simply getting listed. And that's why it takes us quite a while to deliberate on this stuff. So I hope that answered the question on it. For firm commitments and timeframes, it's something that we just simply can't give. It's again, we can't turn around and say, okay, by the 25th, we need to be on a CEX. We would take a terrible offer if we just, took whatever was available on that time or date. So when it does come to us choosing a partner to go with on a CEX, DEX, or otherwise, and providing liquidity into that from the liquidity that has been pulled from the Uniswap pool, that is something that we take in a very deliberate manner. But we are hoping that we'll have some more information on it for everybody soon. And I hope that did answer that question. If there's any kind of follow-up to it, then please do leave it. Please do leave it in the AMA questions section. So back over to you, Skyler.
As for the marketing firm agreements, cancel, delayed indefinitely, or otherwise fall through, yeah, let you guys know about that if that does ever happen. But so far, we're still on track with them. What kind of game will the example be? Play to earn?
Yeah, I think there's a lot of games out at the moment that have really shone a light on that. And Dan was fantastic in kind of spearheading the idea of play to earn with Dogira back in the really early days when we were just kind of discussing, I suppose, the more abstract version of a white paper that we'll be going forward with. But I can't give any definite promises on what will be coming out on that. But play to earn is certainly something that is massively appealing and interesting to everybody on the Dogira team. And I think it's also massively appealing to everybody looking for a new game to play. That if you can find a game to play and you're enjoying it, and like a lot of people are doing with some of the games that are out at the moment, making a living off it. I mean, that's just a really exciting time for gaming and crypto in general. So yeah, it's certainly something that is very much on our radar.
If we'd reach a market cap of 1 billion tomorrow, would we be able to sustain that high market cap by utilizing the new money inflow, hiring more people, bigger partners? So when we get to that high market cap, even if we did all of those things, it doesn't mean that we'd be able to necessarily sustain that. If we did have more new money inflow, of course we'd be getting a bigger team, and we of course are always talking to new people to get those partnerships. Owen, did you want to say anything on that?
Yeah, I'm more excited about the idea of $1 billion market cap. That'd be fantastic. But yeah, I mean, as the coffers, I suppose, grow, we'll be able to do a lot more with the team that we have. And I suppose to look back on the more parabolic leaps we had before, when a lot of speculative trading came in and brought us up to that point of, it was about 70 million diluted market cap, which is crazy. Like what we would have had at that time would have been, I suppose, our own tokens, which we may have purchased into. Some of them might have invested. And we didn't really have anything for, cashing out at the top and, trying to buy stuff with that money, stuff like that. And looking back on it in hindsight, we can talk a lot about kind of where we went from that one. That, if we did start, selling at the top and putting it back into the token, would that have been a good idea? But similarly, where would we define the top to be? Would we have said, okay, it's 20 cent, dump a load of tokens, stuff like that? I mean, there's stuff that we have to be extremely careful on with that from, I suppose, a business perspective. And additionally in how we kind of, treat the token. We can't turn around and look at it when it's starting to go up and be a downwards force on it then. I mean, yes, every investor, or sorry, every speculator or anybody who's bought into the token, yes, you have every right to turn around and sell your tokens when it's at a price target that you believe is on a high. But for the team, a lot of this, again, is much better explained in the white paper. But what we're actually looking at now is how we can sustain these growths where, Dogira as its own entity can actually benefit from those increases in price without us needing to turn around and say, oh, quick, dump a massive amount of tokens into the pool and ruin a parabolic leap while others are, sitting there and kind of, riding it upwards, and they might be buying in fresh, anything like that. There's a lot of, I suppose, morale level that we need to keep on it. Like basically holding respect for the people that have purchased in on a token. We need to kind of take a little bit of a stand back when we see it go up. We can't turn around and state that, okay, team member with price target, you go dump a load of tokens. It's going to kill momentum. And I mean, personally speaking, I don't like buying into a token and seeing a developer dumping on me. It's just kind of a given. Obviously there's team tokens that are staked out, and that is for, individual developers and so on, or individual team members. They belong to them. But then there's actual Dogira funds, which I put quite differently. And that is the stuff that needs to go into growing the value rather than being any kind of drain or drag on it. So, sorry, this is, I know, a very roundabout way of kind of looking at that, and maybe more detail than was asked for on it. But with money inflow, in the white paper, we're going to be explaining, how Dogira will actually be sustained by itself without having to worry about us, having this gigantic chunk of tokens that we have a price target for, which will, drain a liquidity pool or anything like that. Like, we have to look at this from a sustainable point of view where we can continue growing everything. So more detail on that coming in the actual white paper, so we can speak a little bit more in detail on that in the near future. So Skyler, back over to you.
Will the battlebot make a cool dog monster noise and also the coin noise from Super Mario when it makes a good hit? I don't think it will right now, but I can ask the person making it, see if he can add that in there. If the Dogira smart contract is hacked by a white hat hacker, just like the Thorchain project, what should we do? Give a bug bounty or something else?
Yeah, so I saw that, and I have to say, kudos to the white hat hacker who did that. They had access to a gigantic pool of funds. They're extremely lucky that he decided to make it known rather than pulling out enough crypto that it probably could have caused another bear cycle. That was yeah. So what we're doing right now, and this is actually in the white paper, but I will reveal it now for anybody that does need this kind of level of confidence. The contracts that we'll be building going forward for Dogira V2 and otherwise will all have individual audits run on them by third parties. We're looking for a minimum of 2 per contract, and we would be we would be kind of looking towards the more reputable ones that have a name in the industry already. So we would have, we would be happy to put forward a bug bounty on it, particularly for anything more complex we may develop as our own internal developments go on. So yeah, it's a great idea. This is stuff that you do need to build. You need to make incentive for actually helping repair a problem. Otherwise, if you've no incentive at all, you get people who will simply take what they want in payment from it. So yeah, bug bounties, in my opinion, are extremely important. And as the Thorchain hacker noted as well, audits are not a nice to have, they are a must have. So that is on a high list of priority for myself.
The next question, what do you intend to do against the people abusing the system of rewards each X buys? I believe we already covered that in the last Ask Me Anything or the one prior.
Yeah, I think both of them actually. See, I'd recommend taking a listen through those. We speak about it in more detail.
Right. And do you envision Dogira eventually developing any Web3 games in-house beyond Splitter still, or is the plan for Dogira to function exclusively as a tool for third-party devs to build with, or is it a little bit too soon to tell?
Yeah, so it's in detail in the white paper. We do have, I'm very happy with the system that we have in mind for it. So it'll all be shared in that. I will speak a bit on Web3 games though. I absolutely love the reemergence of browser games in Web3. It's actually given them a real valid use case again. Uh, like browser games, they really honestly went the way the dodo when Flash was gone, and you can kind of understand it. Like NPAPI was kind of what drove that. I mean, you were getting high quality games in your browser. Once we switched over to, it has to be WebGL or DET. Yeah, it was it's good for security. I'll give it that. Yeah, like Flash and other, NPAPI applications, they're not fantastic for security, and I can understand why we had to move over to WebGL for all that kind of stuff. But we removed it maybe a little. Well, we can't say too early when it comes to security, but WebGL is just simply not at a point where it was ready to take over from what was essentially a much more mature ecosystem that we had for that stuff. I mean, Flash, as buggy as it was, it'll always have a massive place in my heart. It was one of the, I mean, ActionScript was one of the first languages I ever sat down and started learning. I think it was about 14 or 15 when I started playing with that. And the immense power that you actually got from Flash, I mean, I still don't think there is as good a vector art tool available on the market. Like Flash was ahead of its time in so many ways, but also fell behind the times of so many others. But I think now that we're seeing WebGL really come along a lot more, we're seeing WebGPU becoming a real thing, stuff like that. We're also even seeing multi-threading starting to appear in WebGL applications, like real multi-threading, say for the Unity web player and things like that. And I think that yes, we're on the right track for us to re-reach the heights that we had in interactive browser content and rich media content that we would have had in the Flash days, but possibly a little bit more mature in that we don't try to make full websites out of them anymore. We know what it's good for, we know what it's not good for. So now that we're seeing all of those technologies move ahead at a great pace, and we're seeing, Web3 integration with MetaMask and things like that, yeah, I'm extremely bullish on Web3 games. So just from my own perspective, I think, yes, hopefully we will be seeing some of that from our own in-house teams.
Are multiple sex listings currently in the works, or just a big tier one from previous announcements, not asking for dates or details? Correct me if I'm wrong, Owen, but if we had like 10, 20 different sex listings, wouldn't that just spread? I mean, obviously I'm exaggerating with 10 and 20 of them, but wouldn't that just kind of dilute our liquidity pool quite a bit? Like could spread it thin?
Yeah, if you were to look at the liquidity locker that we have at the moment, you do have to remember that Ethereum is down about 60% from when we were able to pull that. So if we were to try and put us onto 10 different CEXs, I mean, what's in there at the moment? I think in US dollars, I think there's about 300,000 or something like that in total across all tokens. So if you'd put that across 10, you would be looking at $30,000 liquidity per tier one CEX. So it'd cause an issue. To, I suppose, give a better answer on that one, we do speak with multiple CEXs, DEXs, etc. And as I was saying in the question I answered beforehand, it's more about what helps us grow. I wouldn't see any realistic benefit we would get from suddenly appearing on 10 CEXs. Aside from getting some marketing, I guess, from it, but it wouldn't be very long lived. When I look at these actual partners that we go forward with, and I'm sure the rest of the team will agree with me, I look at, what will help the project grow in the long term, not what will give us a short term little bump or anything like that. So we are speaking with multiple different partners that we could move forward with, but the partner that we ultimately choose, or partners that we ultimately choose, would just straight come down to what would be the best for the long term of this token. And yeah, I think the rest of that then I think I've kind of answered on that in the longer diatribe I gave above.
Is the team still looking for a developer? Yeah, we're looking for developers actually. Um, as Owen stated in the intro, we are constantly expanding, and I even brought him like I mean, sometimes when you have developers in this space, it's not exactly like they can provide they can provide not a contract, but a resume. They can provide a resume, but it's also mainly like, proof of work. Like, hey, can you do this? In a normal work environment, you just sit them down, hey, go do that, or they bring in their work and then you check it over. With this, it's all just a bunch of URLs and whatnot, and Owen looks them over. And so yeah, we've been going through interviewing them, etc. So we're looking for Solidity developers, we're looking for Unity developers, backends, etc. So again, if you have friends, tell them come our way because we're hiring multiple, not just one developer.
Yep. And you have myself full time in about 3 weeks from now as well. So lucky for you all, you'll have full time developers at a minimum one. But yeah, we're still we're ramping up in those areas. I do want to also put on that one that there is no kind of full time payment being taken from myself from, say, the liquidity pool or anything like that. So you don't need to worry about any of that going missing or anything along those lines. When we were talking with other developers that will be bringing on board, then obviously we have a lot of different ways that we can kind of upscale that onto. We have our own Dogira tokens, things like that. We'll be speaking a bit more on that in the actual white paper, just so everybody's kind of aware of how we're able to move forward, that kind of stuff.
Is the SDK just going to be handling player-to-player Dogira transactions to an API triggered by in-game events, like the ecosystem, or will there be more functionality like a game of multiplayers? There's a pot. It's distributed like a poker game. Can this SDK use a subtoken? So in-game, yes. I believe we covered that as well. Not in this Ask Me Anything. And does it use a player's normal wallet address or the Web3 MetaMask tied to the player's accounts?
Yeah, so I think I ran over a decent bit of that in the original the original intro to this AMA, where I spoke about, developing your own experiences rather than just having a plain and simple SDK. So what we actually developed those around, I mean, yeah, there could be player-to-player transactions in it. I mean, there, sub-tokens, and there could be, multiplayers having a pot that's distributed, stuff like that. This is all stuff that's fully possible. Like, we will be looking into kind of everything that works and everything that doesn't work with it as well, and moving forward with what essentially is fun. Like, one of the biggest things I have about a lot of native blockchain games right now, the ones that worked and the ones that didn't, the ones that are working the best are the ones that are designed like games, and the blockchain complements it. There are others then that are designed, just for blockchain. As in, I know how to do this in the blockchain, therefore I'm going to make a game around that one function. And those are the ones that don't tend to do so well. So what I'll be doing, and what, our new developers in the future will be doing as well, will be designing and developing games that are designed as games rather than simply designed as, a blockchain application. And we will see then, how can we actually move forward with this in a sense where it will actually add value to, say, the Dogira project, and how we can utilize the blockchain in a way that will enhance it rather than just simply having it there to be there. Like, I think that we do everybody a massive disservice if we simply just pushed out, a title that had some level of blockchain functionality in it without it really making any sense. Like, the last thing I want to see is where we just release a bog standard game, but the only way to buy, a cosmetic in it is with Dogira. Like, there's no need for Dogira to replace, fiat currency in that sense. It doesn't make things really any easier. Like, yes, it'd be nice to have, like, if you have something where you can ramp up on fiat or on PayPal or anything like that, yeah, it'd be nice to have crypto too. But I don't think you can call it a blockchain game if that's all you can do. So yeah, there's, like, on my side, it comes down to what is fun and then how are we going to build it. That's how I kind of approach game development, and I think that is the best way to approach it. It is something that we can actually work on making something fun, making something interesting, rather than binding ourselves at the very first hurdle and stating, no, it has to do this one specific blockchain thing. Now, obviously, all the developers, including myself, would have a decent bit of experience with the blockchain, and we will be thinking in wider terms. So, we're not going to turn around and make, completely just a game that would not work at all with anything to do with blockchain. We will obviously have that kind of stuff in mind. But the reality is, with how far along the blockchain has kind of come in the last, I was going to say the last couple of years, but really the last kind of 2 years, not even a couple. It's it's come along to a point where really you could just start thinking of interconnected gameplay and even just multiplayer and stuff like that, and finding the ways that it actually ties into it, how it works, and how we can enhance these experiences rather than take away from them by just jury rigging on blockchain at the end of it. So more information on that in the white paper. So you can probably tell that I'm doing a little bit of kind of skipping around on the point, but we do have more of this in the actual white paper itself, which we're looking forward to sharing with you. Back over to you, Skyler.
When Dogira plush, send me a website. I have a website that was sent to me that is going to be awesome for our merch. Finally, one that works. It's called printful.com. It does international shipping, so that will be for all our merch once I get it up and running. For the plush, just send me a make your own custom plush one, and I can try to design something. I'll throw them both on Shopify, and then we'll have all in one quote unquote merch store. And if you guys have any other ideas. Is there any plan to move to another chain?
Yeah, so I've spoken about this a couple of times before as well, that we're always looking at different chains that we can move on to, and what would actually work best for any projects that we build on it. And I've said before, we could be looking at we could be looking at, say, having Dogira on Ethereum and then having another token that we can jump onto, stuff like that. And like off-chain tokens, things like that, which are always interesting to actually look at. I mean, there's so many different ways that we can kind of integrate with other chains as well, rather than, just upping and offing and stuff like that. So I think that right now, a lot of the people that are kind of interested in Dogira have found it through, Ethereum. And I think that is something that is kind of important for us to be able to keep a hold on, and then look at how things are in the long term and how we can kind of work with that, and how we can, look at other things and how, maybe off-chain tokens can help, stuff like that. So I do speak more in detail on this in the actual white paper, and I think that I think we have found some brilliant solutions in there that we'll be running forward with. So once the white paper is kind of released, you'll have a lot more information on that front. And again, apologies for needing to kind of skip around a couple of the questions, but there's a lot in the white paper that we don't quite want to reveal in full yet, so you will just have to sit tight for a little bit longer while we get that through the design end and get it released out to you all.
Is the current ever-increasing popularity of blockchain gaming and NFT projects affecting the speed, direction, and focus of the project development right now?
So I think, I've spoken about this once or twice before, but a lot of what is important to me in any project at all is the ability to remain agile and to actually respond to things like that. I think we were actually extremely lucky in what we were, I suppose, road mapping and putting into our white paper actually aligned with where the market was going to begin with. So we didn't actually really have to shift around a lot of stuff in response to, I suppose, how we're seeing the market develop right now. It was more that we had done our shifting around beforehand, and I suppose it nearly kind of clarified for us that we were really going in the right direction. Like, I think, again, this is another thing that will become a lot clearer once we do have the white paper out and you can read up a little bit more on it. But no, I think really it was more that we were shifting direction, and I think we just kind of aligned with where the market was going to begin with. So definitely brought a lot of, I suppose, peace of mind when we could see that, these systems are working. So I think that for a lot of it, it's more that the market is going in a direction and we just happen to be kind of following along with it anyway. So it's definitely a good side, or a good site on our side.
Can we get a clear and concise answer on if market conditions are delaying the releases of things or slowing marketing? If so, what conditions specifically do you consider a market turnaround?
Yeah, so I think, again, I kind of spoke about this at the beginning where I was talking about, Bitcoin went down to about 29 and we're getting worried about going through 28 and, where's the floor? Everybody got bearish and we saw, a lot of tokens getting sold off and then bought back up, and suddenly we spiked back to 32, stuff like that. And now a lot of people are bullish again. And I mean, that's such a small window of volatility. That's, 10%. That's nothing in crypto. So it's kind of shocked me to look at it. And like today, everybody is bullish. And what happens tomorrow if we go to 30? Is everybody bearish again? Like, so when it comes to me saying, like, what do I consider a market turnaround? I would look for consistent upside. That if we're, like, we've been bouncing between about 29 and 34 for about 10 weeks now. And every time we, drop down, we're in a bear market. Every time we go up, we're back into the bull run. It's the golden bull run, and let's go. So for me, I would take a much more kind of relaxed look at it. I mean, my opinion on this is, and again, this is not financial advice, so please don't trade in it. I could be completely wrong, but my opinion on where we are at the moment is that we're in a summer lull, and I'm not expecting to see any kind of consistent turnaround until from September through December. And again, that might not even happen. When you're kind of working with, full time in crypto and you've been in it for a long time, sorry to say full time in crypto, it's going to be a couple of weeks yet. But having been in it as long as I have and having worked on it full time before, you look at these things a lot differently. When you look at development, you just see development time. I mean, I've said beforehand, I would love a little bit of a downtime period on the market or a little bit of a cool off so that we can actually focus on development and building a product. I mean, if you look at this realistically, when we went in that parabola up to $70 million, if not more, we didn't have anything. People were trading based on speculation. I mean, that's insanity. And nothing can survive at that level based off pure speculation. I mean, yes, there are some community tokens that, they managed to, just by sheer power, force, and will, they managed to kind of keep going. Every one of them dropped quite severely once, I suppose, May came around and everything took a dip. I mean, we saw Bitcoin drop quite substantially, down, over 50%. But we saw altcoins drop by 99%. A lot of these projects that really didn't have any projects just dropped. So for me, when it comes to actually, speeding up marketing and getting these, additional things released, I'm not really looking at market conditions on that kind of stuff. I'm more so looking at, once we do start moving out and, doing more wide scale marketing and stuff like that, I want there to be something that can actually be looked at. I don't want to have speculative buys come in, because we're simply going to get buys that come in from people who did not inform themselves on the project. They're waiting to see a moon, they don't get an immediate moon, and then they dump their tokens. And then they take their, reflection fees on either side of it, they lose money, they leave, and they don't like the project anymore, even though they knew nothing of what it actually stood for or what it was doing. So I don't really look at market conditions as being, when we would jump out now. Yeah, granted, if Bitcoin had another giant crash, or we're coming into the winter and we were down, around 20k or anything like that, and again, that's not where I think we're going, but if that did happen, yeah, there might be a bit of sense in not ramping up marketing while the market is extremely bearish. So I can't really give a concise answer on what I'd consider to be a market turnaround. If I could give a concise answer on that, then realistically, I should be working as an actual financial advisor or working in economics. A lot of the time, you only know that things are turning around when you're in the turnaround. So, yeah, I hope that kind of answers it well enough, but there is no kind of black and white answer I can give you on that one. Again, it's similar to when we work with any CEX or DEX partners. We look at these things in the long term and how it will improve long-term growth, and not just give this little spike in value that people can latch onto. Or, as I've said before, when it comes to somebody who's just looking for a quick moon, this isn't the correct project. You've invested in the wrong project if you're looking for a quick moon. We're actually developing things. So it's a bit of that's such an odd thing to say in with the bull run that we kind of peaked through in, April and May, that this is a project that's developing things. It suddenly becomes a rarity that there's community tokens where people are under the impression that if you pay a couple of people on Twitter to, shout out your name, that immediately everybody goes up in value. And, for everybody who gets, a 10x of a token that does that, I can assure you there are many more people that are at minus 99% because of it. And those are at best gambling tokens. And if that's your thing, okay. But it's not what we're building here. So we're not looking at marketing in the sense of like, oh, okay, well, the price is down, so we better go market now. It simply doesn't work like that. What are we marketing? We've already marketed our plans for, what we're actually doing. We have a white paper coming up, which we'll be able to show in greater detail on it. I think that all the effective marketing that we can do without starting to develop on our products and release more information has been done. We'd simply be throwing money at getting a hype machine rolling. And that is simply not sustainable. The fact that we were at 70 million and we dropped down to, I think, 2.5 at the lowest end of the crash, I mean, that should tell you that there has to be something tangible backing the project. And it is fantastic that We have a great community here, and we've obviously got a lot of courage and a lot of, I suppose, faith in what we're actually building, that a lot of the community are able to hold on and keep us at, good levels for us to continue on with and continue developing on. But other tokens were not quite so lucky. There are tokens that went from, 8 and 9 digits down to, some that are at like, 6 digits, maybe 7 in some cases. Others that have vanished entirely. Others that found contract bugs and lost massive market caps in them as well. People rush into these things and a huge amount of money was lost because of it. And it's one of the reasons I'm very comfortable with Dogira, in that we are actually building a product here, and the token should live or die based on the quality of what we bring to the market. And that's so much more comfortable for me than the idea of, hey, go on Twitter and give somebody 2 ether and see if they'll shout about you for a while and see if the price goes up. It's not a game that I'm interested in playing here. So yeah, that's quite a long-winded reply, I know, but I hope that does make my position clear on how we're doing this stuff and how we actually look to grow the project in the long term.
Will Dogira be getting a new audit completed since our last audit provider rubbed? I would say yes, and that would be not on this current version of the token. It would be on V2.
Yeah, so as I said, with V2, there will be 2 individual audits that are run on it. And yeah, World of Rugs, who, like as you said, provided their own rug in the end. I think a lot of the issue around them was like that audit was done long before I think any of the current team were like on board with it. There was a different developer and so on, but they had quite a good name at that stage. But I noticed when we had the issue with a member of the team who was swiftly removed and had legal recourse, that there were some bugs that shouldn't have been in there. So we were able to do a review over that. I was able to check over what else was in there. Right now, I'm confident in how it is, but I'm confident in the sense that it's not being exploited. But for actually running forward onto a V2, then yes, there will be audits done by reputable outlets. I think World of Rogues were reputable for a very short amount of time, but I think a lot of that came from similar to, as I've spoken about, with a lot of projects that kicked off during the height of the bull run. A lot of it came from hype, and I think that more than just myself pointed out that this audit is not suitable. And being honest, if it wasn't for the fact that I had looked over it myself, if I wasn't a developer, I would be asking somebody else to audit it immediately. But for the time being, we can hold off until we're moving on to our V2 token.
How similar is Dogira's approach for NFTs in video games to Enjin, and what are the things that Dogira will improve over Enjin?
Yeah, so NFT usage in Enjin is pretty fantastic. I think we've spoken about it in the same way before, that I mean, they're taking, items, they're taking characters and they're NFTizing them. They're making them easy to trade between people. They're allowing them to put them up on open marketplaces. And I think that they're using them brilliantly. And we have to remember that Enjin, I mean, they practically wrote the modern NFT. ERC 1155, that's Enjin. Like that's if you look at the older standard for it, I think it was 721. Like it's workable, but it's not very good. Not compared to what we have now. So I mean, I think Enjin have really set a great bar in what they were doing with that. And I would say that, like, of course, we'll be following some similar approach to that. I mean, non-fungible tokens are kind of the best way to do things like, having in-game inventories and stuff like that. It's such a perfect use case for them. I do think there's other use cases as well that we can look towards, which may not have been done yet. And we'll be able to put our own unique spin on that stuff. But like NFTs are, like, when we say a similar approach, NFTs are practically their own platform. It's similar to saying, how similar will Ethereum be to Bitcoin? It's like, sorry, no, that might be maybe Bitcoin to Cardano or something like that. That, we're using the same, I suppose, underlying technology behind it, but you can do so much more differently with it. And for the things that we'll improve over Enjin, I mean, it's like, I don't want to sit here and say like, oh yes, we'll do everything better, and that's simply it. Because Enjin, I think they've done fantastically. I have a huge amount of respect for everything they've done. They've really set a lot of bars in, how this stuff actually works in the real world, and then being able to bring kind of, I suppose, knowledge in actual, I suppose, economics into their projects as well. Stuff like that. They've like they've opened up so many doors on it. Like what we'll improve over them, I think we're going to do things differently to them. I think that we're going to have different projects, different priorities, different goals, but I don't think again that this is something that we need to be one-on-one with. Like I'm not going to turn around and try and build a new NFT standard because their one works perfectly for anything that I can dream about doing with it right now. If it comes to a point where we find something that we can't do, then sure, maybe maybe we'll write up our own standard for it. But like saying that we're going to improve over them, I don't think that's a fair way of looking at it for either us or them, that we're doing things differently. Like I said, we're kind of focusing more around building experiences, games, titles, stuff like that right now. And a couple of other really cool things that are detailed in our white paper. And yeah, I think once you do read through the white paper, you'll see kind of rather how differently we're doing some things rather than how we're improving over certain facets or anything like that.
With Owen shifting to working full-time on Dogira, have the goals and timeframes for development also changed?
Yeah, so the white paper goes down with the white paper goes into like a lot more detail on that kind of stuff. I mean, the goals and timeframes for development. I mean, they've been changing kind of consistently as we've been running through it. But I think the issue was that even when we did change goals, timeframes, and development in the sense of we wanted to create more kind of medium and long term value, and additionally also more short term value, that it wouldn't have been possible in the amount of errors that we had. Like when we're looking at the SDK that was proposed by the previous staff member, like that one was scheduled for a time frame which I gave really no agreement with. Like we were going to see what we could do, and it was kind of on them, and eventually, of course, they decided not to see through their end on it. So with that, then we looked at how we get it done and what kind of timeframes we be looking at for that. Like that's where it was kind of like even if we did sit down and put all our resources into this and the time frame that we do have available, I don't think it will actually add any value to the token. And this is a reality. Like I mean, you're going into an area that, I mean, Enjin have an SDK that's been released for Unity. And like, are we going to just tackle that? Are we going to build the same as what they built? Are we going to charge differently for it? Stuff like that. I think the white paper will give more insight into that. But one thing I'm kind of wary of doing right now is kind of giving very precise timeframes on how stuff will happen. We do need to remain agile in what we're doing. We'll be able to keep open and transparent about the progress of things. And as we kind of, I suppose, roadmap out individual items that we'll be jumping into and come out of the more experimental phases, we'll be able to start giving timeframes for any releases that are coming, or any direct stuff from there. We're going to be running like a lot. Actually, I'll avoid giving additional info on that one. It's in the white paper, but there's a lot kind of coming up, and I think you'll understand better when you're able to read through it that we've a lot to look forward to outside of what was, just kind of written down in the original roadmap we walked forward with. There's a lot of things that add a lot more value into it, and some things that we're going to push out a little bit further. Like if you look at the SDK that we were developing on, and we said it before that, I want to start building titles and experiences that actually make use of it. I mean, I might not have a title, multiple titles and experiences that are built in. I think the SDK was planned for Q4 or some sort of beta in Q3. I mean, plain and simple, if I was to build something between now and the end of Q3 and get an SDK out on what I built on it, it would be an embarrassment compared to what else is on the market. So it's similar, as I said above, and how we're doing things differently than trying to, improve on one specific thing and stuff like that. But yeah, like I would say that if we're to talk about like a one-to-one shift and how they're moving, like I'm going to have a lot more time to actually work on the project. That it's going to be something that I can actually kind of focus my waking and alert hours on, rather than a lot of the time what we've had now. I would finish the full day of work. I would be exhausted and I would log on and there wouldn't be much I can do. So I think that is signaling a move in a very good long-term direction, that we can actually really get all of this stuff done and start building a project that can really return the value that we've been seeing in it from day one. Now we're in a position where we can actually really provide that stuff. So I would say yes, in a positive way, they have changed. But again, the goals and the time frames of development, that has been in flux for quite a while now. And that's kind of the importance of bringing agility into all of your projects. That if we stuck with like some of the more original plans we had, I mean, I remember we were talking about having our own like NFT platform like Rarible before, and the reality is now, I mean, what would we do with that? I mean, Rarible and OpenSea have really cornered that section of the market. and we'd still be developing on it. Like we'd be probably another 2 or 3 months before we get something like that out. In which case, like the boat has sailed, it's gone. So yeah, I think keeping agile around kind of all these expectations is very, very important for ourselves, particularly when we want to build these long-term projects. I hope that again answered it well enough, and I know that is without me going into details that are kind of contained in the white paper. But once that is released, there will be a bit more information on, I suppose, more long-term, medium-term, and short-term developments on it.
Are there any new partnerships planned for the future and anything you can share on this? We are always looking for new partnerships that are mutually beneficial, and we cannot expand on that. We can't share anything else before everything's confirmed if we are working out partnerships.
Yeah, exactly. Thank you, Skyler.
When admin DM, send me a DM. I don't see in my DMs, man. Telegram, Discord, whatever. Let's see. What was the budget for advertising and marketing at Bitcoin Miami? There's virtually zero increase in new holders from that event. Are our marketing efforts not working? What can we do? So primarily it was that one person going down to pretty much help us talk to the people at Bitcoin Miami. We did have that one mobile poster that was on that truck that went around the event for both Friday and Saturday. And what can we do better? Well, we're always looking for different ways to handle marketing. Again, as Owen pointed out before, we definitely need the products out and the things developed on to go ahead and say, hey, this is what we have, rather than just a bunch of people speculating on the price. Owen, did you want to expand on that?
Yeah, I mean the crypto Miami stuff. It didn't like there wasn't a massive amount of budget put into that. I think the most budget was getting somebody to fly down there and actually speak to people. So certainly not something that would kind of concern me if we didn't see a great jump of holders in it. I wouldn't expect there to be a huge amount. I mean, this is what I'm talking about with targeted marketing. That anybody who did buy in, after Bitcoin Miami and speaking with the Dogira community member who went down there, like those would be extremely strong buys because they would be understanding of what they're buying into, or they'd have an interest in the technology with it. So I would find that even, like, I mean, granted how little we actually spent on that, one purchase of one ether or two would probably cover the whole lot. So I didn't have massive expectations coming out of that one. I mean, we weren't center stage or unveiling a product or anything. I think this kind of goes to show how good these markets are, as in like how targeted they are. These are people who've been in crypto for quite a long time now. They're people who've, been quite successful with it. They're not going to jump into something because somebody on Twitter got paid one ether to talk about it. So I think that these kind of targeted events, yes, you do tend to get a much smaller bite at them, but the quality is 100 times higher. You get people who are really interested in coming on board with it. And I do know from some of the connections that we made outside of that it certainly wasn't fruitless. So in my opinion, it was probably one of our more successful campaigns, albeit, yes, it wasn't one that created a doubling of holders or anything like that.
All right. So, Owen, Dan, if you guys want to look through the Ask Me Anything questions and answer anything, or if you want to expand on any of the questions, feel free.
I'll do a quick run through it. Dan, was there anything that you spotted in there that you'd like to jump in on?
No, I think everyone sort of answered it. I think we're in an interesting time in the market at the moment. Finding support, so I'd very much like to sort of capitalize on that, and I want to see Dogira sort of price sort of move upwards as the market sort of regains a bit of confidence, but we're sort of not out of the woods yet. But really good news, Owen, that you've now full time, and looks excited. I'm really excited to sort of start developing and really getting Dogira to where it needs to be. So that's it for me.
Yeah, absolutely. It's I think, what was it, about was it February or was it March when I kind of jumped on board with the project to begin with, and I don't think any of us I don't think any of us saw it going parabolic to 40 million and 70 million, and then we started development, and like it's just been such a crazy crypto cycle in general, that this cool off period in actually allowing me to sit down and look at where we're going in the long term. I'm super excited for it, really. It's I think that we've maybe crypto is not fully out of the woods yet, but I think Dogira itself is making a very strong case for coming out of the woods on its own end, price action or not. So yeah, I'm absolutely looking forward to the next couple of weeks, months, and hopefully years ahead, and we see where we get to on it. I think that's everything then. So yeah, thank you to everybody who turned up. And yeah, as always, we'll be available in the Telegram group and on Discord, etc. for anybody who has any questions. And if your question didn't get answered for any reason, of course, do drop it into the Telegram group. And yeah, we'll always be happy to speak to you on it. Perfect. Thanks a million for everything, all, and we'll be on Telegram and Discord for anybody who has any other questions. Thanks for joining us all.